Hello and welcome to the Reinventors Podcast from Live to Reinvent. Live to Reinvent provides a comprehensive online longevity, health, fitness and wellbeing training program. And in the Reinventors, we talk to people in midlife and beyond who've made those big changes. We hear about what their trigger point was. What was the thing that made them decide they had to make a change? And then we hear about the steps they took along the way. And finally, they tell us all about where they are now. I can guarantee that after hearing these stories, you'll go away with some practical steps to take for your own reinvention and start to make a change today. Here with Jason Smith from FitinMidlife. Jason's got 271,000 followers on Instagram. He's got a massive TikTok following. He's built a business which is successfully reaching people across the world, not just the UK. And best of all, Jason's not a sort of 25-year-old young guy.
Thank you.
He's in his 50s and he was on the cover of Men's Fitness quite recently. So I'll get in. Just Jason, if you can tell me a little bit more. Let's start with Men's Fitness and your story.
Well, Men's Fitness was a really nice surprise and something that actually meant a lot to me because my story, as I will explain, is really one of reinvention, transformation, at the age of 50. But during my kind of youth, I did work out. I went to gyms and I ran and all of those kind of things. And in those days, so when I was about 19 or 20, I used to subscribe to Men's Fitness and get all my kind of fitness advice from them. And I would sit there looking through the magazines and I would think, oh, it'd be great to be on a cover of a magazine like this. And so to be on that cover, 34, 35 years later at the age of 55 is, quite significant for me and quite meaningful for me. And it's quite an achievement. But the reason that I'm on there is that at the age of 49, I was very different to how I am now. And, I just followed a process which included a lot of trial and error and managed to transform not just the way that I look, hence the front cover, but everything about my life, which, we can explore as we talk.
Yeah, well, I mean, what a transformation. And so now, are you 55 now? Are you 50?
Yeah, I'm 56 in 5 weeks.
Okay. Oh, are you? What date's your birthday?
Yeah. December the 8th.
December the 5th. I beat you.
Yeah. Well,
a couple of years older, but interesting. Yeah. So, but I mean, so we're talking a 6-year period that you've totally transformed and reinvented yourself. And I know you described your reinvention. You said your fitness was your reinvention in Men's Fitness.
Yes.
So tell me a bit about life before. I know you're a corporate, so tell us about corporate life.
Yeah, so I entered the corporate world at the age of 18. I didn't go to university. I managed to, this was in the late 1980s when Thatcher and Reagan were around and, the economy was booming. And I managed to join a local company on a management training type of course. And during the course of my career, I was incredibly ambitious. I ended up being pretty successful. I ended up with a good global executive role, and that involved a lot of travel. It involved working across a lot of time zones. And the one thing that it didn't involve was my family. And the key issue that I had at that point was the lack of time I was spending with my son, who at that time was 4 or 5 years old. Because my wife had a similar kind of role to me, we were outsourcing parenthood, and I didn't think that was right. And so it was quite interesting, actually, because, at this point in time, I didn't believe in things like manifestation or anything like that. But
yes,
I can remember in the new year on or around the 1st of January, thinking I need to change something. I need to come out of this role and find a way of spending more time with James, my son. And by the May of that year, on the 31st of May, it was my last day at work in that corporate role. And I was able to take advantage of a restructure that was going on in the organization and position myself as somebody that could exit and therefore have a, pretty good soft landing. So, I didn't have an urgency to find something new. And to cut a long story short, I then, for a good 4 or 5 years, did consulting as an independent. During my career, I built up a good network, and I was able to use that network to get consulting roles. And that afforded me a much better balance because I was able to kind of work when he was at school or asleep and all of those kind of things, and therefore spend much more time with him, and it was quite fulfilling. But at some point, I kind of lost myself, and I ended up spiraling into a bout of depression, which led to bad behaviors, really, and bad choices. So I wasn't eating well, I was drinking too much, and that all resulted in me having hypertension, high cholesterol, fatty liver, and the doctor gave me a very stern talking to because I was on my way to being type 2 diabetic. And what was really weird though, when I look back, is that that didn't kind of shock me into any kind of action. That wasn't the catalyst to the changes that I made. It contributed for sure, but it wasn't the actual thing that did it. I kind of just resigned myself to my fate, if you like, and I just thought, well, this is the way it is, and the prescription drugs will help me manage it. And then eventually, one morning, I was sitting, flicking through Instagram, and I saw this post, and it just stopped me in my tracks, and I changed there and then. So I resolved that I would stop drinking, that I would start eating more healthily, that I would start exercising, and that I had this theory that if I changed the way I felt in my body, then that would change the way that I thought in my head. And it did. It works.
Yes.
But the changes in the head occurred pretty much on day one. And and then the rest is kind of history. I followed a routine of regular exercise and of eating better. I wasn't starving myself. I wasn't eating bland and boring prison food or anything like that. And I didn't miss the alcohol at all, which was really interesting because that was the one fun thing in my life up until that point. And it all kind of snowballed from there.
Well, I mean, there's a few questions coming from that. It's a great story because you talk about the change. Sounds like there was the Insta post, but prior to that, you'd already started to make changes. First thing was, what was your job in the corporate world? What were you doing? What industry was it?
So I was in media, and I was in marketing. So the last position I had was a chief marketing officer. Yeah.
But that might have been useful for what you've gone on to do with your Insta and everything like this.
You know what? That's really interesting because I've never really thought of this as a business. I've thought of it as a passion for sure, but also a hobby. So, and also, the world has changed so much. When I was doing that kind of stuff, things like Instagram didn't exist.
I know. It's only recent, really, isn't it? For people younger than us, they might think it's been around forever, but it hasn't. But you say, the process started with that when you were sort of talking about the depression and the change in work. How long ago was that? Because it wasn't an instant. Really?
No, so that started to happen when I was around 47, and I was 49 when I had that moment so you had and decided to change.
And I think that's important to say because sometimes people think, oh, it all happens overnight, but you had to make the change to decide to leave the work. You knew that you had to be with your son. That was the decision. That was your kind of North Star, I guess, from what you're describing. then you had the process of change, and maybe the process of change wasn't that great if you were putting on weight and your cholesterol went up and your blood pressure. And you were so was there a struggle with the new identity of not being the high flying?
Yeah, totally. My identity was my job title, whether that be as a chief marketing officer or as a consultant. And that's the consultant really, didn't have the same thing, but I lost that sense of self-worth. And I felt like I even though I was spending a lot of time with my son, and in my opinion at least being a great dad, that wasn't enough for me. Maybe probably because I'd spent the previous 30 years focusing on my career and being ambitious for my career. So there was a big gap and a big hole that emerged, and I really struggled with that. It was a really mentally and emotionally, I kind of felt worthless, and that's not a great position to be in.
No, and it's a position that I think a lot of people in their late 40s, early 50s reach, because if for women, we talk about perimenopause and menopause all the time, but often it's just the timeline. Careers change. I mean, I'm not dismissing perimenopause symptoms and stuff, but often that identity crisis happens for people in this stage of life. So like I said, your change is very dramatic, very quick in some ways, but it wasn't an instant overnight thing. But the Instapost sounds like it was. So what was the Instapost?
Yeah, the Instapost was a picture of Bilbo Baggins, the Hobbit, from the J.R. Tolkien books and films. And it was a still image of him running through the Shire with a big beaming smile on his face. Very bright picture, and underneath were the words, I'm going on an adventure. And that picture for me epitomized everything that I wanted and everything that I wasn't at that moment in time. But it just made me think, this is how I want to live. I want to feel that sense of fun, adventure, energy, all of these positive attributes that were at that point really, really missing from my life. And for whatever reason, that put me on what I would describe as a positive change path. So I think the reason that I didn't kind of react to the doctor's report and the stern telling off was that was all negative. It was, you're this, you're that, you're, and in a way, given how I was feeling about my self-worth, it just reinforced, everything that I thought about myself. So this now was completely different. It wasn't how I thought about myself, but it was how I thought I could be. And I remember distinctly just getting a piece of paper out, and I drew a line down the middle, and I wrote a list of things on one side that I would stop, and a list of things on the other side of things that I would start doing. And so on the start side, there were things like exercise, eating healthily, all of those kind of things, trying new things as well. That was something, to live this life of adventure. I wanted to, kind of take some risks and put myself out there a bit and teach myself things or be taught things. And on the other side, it was, drinking alcohol. It was, kind of, lolling around, being sedentary most of the day, all of those kind of things that were holding me back. And so what that gave me in a way was a roadmap that I could follow, because I had all of these things that I would stop and all of these things that I would start. And and that's what I did. I started the things I wanted to start, and starting that day, actually, I dug out a pair of old trainers and decided that I was going to go for a run. It wasn't much of a run because I was so unfit. It was mostly walking. But the key thing was I felt so good because I'd done something for myself. It was in January. The weather was one of those beautiful, bright, crisp, sunny days that we sometimes get in midwinter. And I was out in the local countryside, just enjoying the views, the the fresh air, all of those things. And I felt so good for just doing it.
Yeah.
And that again kind of reinforced this positivity that was all of a sudden starting to emerge within me. And, I thought, well, I enjoyed it today. I'll enjoy it tomorrow as well. So, I did the same thing the next day.
Yeah. So you were like 49 at this stage, were you?
Yeah.
And you hadn't made a decision, I'm going to change how I work and to drive my life. It was a decision about, I'm going to move. I'm going to stop doing this stuff. I'm going to start doing this stuff. So work-wise, you were still doing your consultancy. And
yes.
what was what was a typical day like then, before the writing down and the Bilbo Baggins moment?
So a typical day would be, I'd get up, I'd have a coffee, etc. I'd take my son to school.
Yeah.
And then I would start doing my consulting work. A lot of the consulting work that I did would be actually producing stuff. So what time of day you actually did that was fairly flexible. Some days I would have meetings like this, over Zoom or Teams or Google, etc. Some days I'd have to go into London or other places to go and meet clients. But the thing that I always did was said, right, I will prioritize doing this exercise. So if I had a meeting first thing in the morning, as soon as I got back, I would change, go out for a run, stroke walk, and do something that would fit with this new persona that I was developing. And if I didn't have a client, then typically I would do that as soon as I got back from the school run. In fact, some days I'd leave the car in the school car park because it was a local. There was a cops very close to my son's school, and I would just go and walk, stroke run around there. And the other thing actually was things like, my son played football for a local team, and he would have training 2 nights a week on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And previous to all of this, me and a bunch of other dads would get a pint from the bar and we'd stand around having a chat whilst the coach was training the boys. And I thought, no, I'm going to go for a run. So I bought one of those head torch things and started running. And probably about 6 or 7 weeks later, there were 4 or 5 dads running. And then and it became very social, and we would go at an appropriate pace for everybody that was in the group. But it was the first time that I thought that actually me doing this is making other people do things to help themselves as well.
Yeah.
And that was that continued actually for years and years, so right up until the point that he had to leave that team because of his age, and they didn't have a team for his for the age that he had reached. And even now, a lot of those dads I'm still in touch with, and every now and again we'll organize a run and catch up. And the same as previous school too, so I described earlier, I'd start going for a run, leave the car in the car park, and then, dads who either weren't working that particular day, or, some of the dads were in a fortunate position where they were retired at a relatively young age. Yeah, they'd join me. And, it was the start of me. It was the start really of me thinking maybe I could help other people. So, because, by that point, everything started in January, late January.
January 2000 and when was that? 2019.
19, yeah. And then
so you
by
were
May
50.
So I was going to be 50 in that December, and by May of that year, so May 2019, in the half-term holiday, we went to Crete. It was our first typical foreign holiday, with sun, sea, pool, beach, and all of those kind of things. And I just remember, by that point, I was completely different physically. I'd lost a lot of weight. I'd lost about 20 kilograms by that.
And that was just by doing this, making this commitment in January.
Absolutely. So from running, I joined a gym as well towards the end of January because the weather changed, and so I was working out in a gym. I took swimming lessons, I took tennis lessons, and I did various other things. I bought a mountain bike as well, and but every day I was doing something. But the thing that's really important is that whilst I was doing something every day, it wasn't like it was taking up my day. A lot of people that in my kind of age group will say, I just don't have time. I can't fit it in. Well, my workouts were 45 minutes, half an hour, something along that line. And I just think, well, you can find 30 minutes. You can find 45 minutes. If you really think about it, if it's a big enough priority for me, which is what it did become for me, you will find that time. There's a lot of time that, you can use by, as I did, instead of standing around having a chat, watching the boys train their football, go and do some exercise then. Or, if you can fit something in at the beginning of the day, great. Get up half an hour earlier. It's not going to kill you. You'll feel the benefits of it throughout the rest of that day, and that just compounds over time till you start to make some real big significant changes. So that just what I was doing.
Just going back. So your reinvention sort of started like way back, but then the January you committed to stopping drinking in January 2019. Is that correct?
Yeah. 21st.
Was that one of the 21st? So you remember the date? And
I do.
Was that? Do you think? I'm trying to think. Like, if you had you trained to be a personal trainer at this stage, was it completely new? So you hadn't. So. And you've gone from, so this is like 6 years, you've gone from that to 271,000 global followers of your program. It's incredible. I just want to get a picture of like, what was the big thing, do you think? What was the alcohol? Tell me about the alcohol story and how that impacted what
So the alcohol thing was very, very significant. So, and it was significant, I think, more mentally than anything else. So, I got to the point where, I was drinking too much. It started off as a glass of wine. It was all wine, by the way. There was no spirits. It wasn't beer or anything like that. It was all wine. And it typically I would open a bottle of wine to accompany my dinner. And, in the early days, I'd pour myself a glass and that would be it. But then over a period of months and years, one glass turned to two turned to three, which is a bottle. And then, then I'd find myself opening another bottle. And, some nights I would be having a couple of bottles of wine each night. And, that was, probably a very significant reason why I had all of the medical
depression
issues and the depression. But the thing that I did was I was telling myself that this is, this is the one bit of me time that I get to enjoy. Me having a glass of wine, watching some rubbish on TV, and kind of chilling out. And not that I had that much to chill out from from that point. I was doing my consulting still, but it wasn't overly stressful in the same way as all the politics of a corporate role can bring. So I wouldn't say I was dependent on it, and my doctor said you're not dependent on it, because when I went on a family holiday, I wouldn't drink, for example. So and I could stop drinking quite easily, but I'd always go back to it. And the thing that changed on that 21st of January was, the post that I described was posted by a guy who on the 1st of January had committed that he was going to give up alcohol. And there was a mental link that, he had posted this picture of Bilbo with the words, "I'm going on an adventure," because he was planning to go on an adventure that particular day. And so I suppose that mentally became a key thing for me. So alcohol equals dull, depressing, listless.
Midlife. What you call the midlife drift, isn't it?
Midlife
drift. Drifting along, drinking, self-medicating with wine.
absolutely. You don't plan to get there. You just end up there, and you've just drifted along, and therefore everything that I wanted had no alcohol involved with it whatsoever. So I just thought, right, I'm gonna stop drinking, and that did make a significant difference. And I didn't do AA or anything like that. I just stopped. I didn't even clear out the bottles of wine, of which there were plenty that were around the house. They were just left gathering.
And what about
your
wife? Does she drink, or did you do it?
Yeah, but not to the extent that I did. So she would be more of social, and still is today. That's which is fine. So if when we go out on a date night or whatever, she'll have a glass of wine or two. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me, and she'll enjoy her wine, and I'll enjoy my lime and soda. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, but it's such a big thing for a lot of people, especially people. I think it's sort of you don't have, and there's this thing about, everyone says it. I wasn't an alcoholic, or don't have to be, but it's kind of like this grey area drinking. There's lots of terms that are used now for this type of drinking. I think a lot of it is the length of time people in their 40s and 50s have been drinking. You just get a bit worn out by it.
Yes.
That's like,
I think those medical ailments that I had were, it wasn't so much that I spent a short period of time in comparison to the rest of my life drinking, reasonably heavily. It's a compound effect of, the previous 30 years that I'd been drinking. Have
you corrected those blood pressure and your cholesterol?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, so that happened in the April of 2019. The doctors arranged for me to have regular checkups, and I went in, had my bloods taken, did my blood pressure, all of those kind of things. I had an ultrasound scan on my liver, and when I went back at the beginning of May for the report, the doctor said, I have no idea how you've done this. This really is amazing, but
wow,
I'm going to take you off everything. You're
a month.
Fine. So 3 months. So
3 months.
From the 21st of January. The appointment where that was said was in the early part of May. So so amazing. February, March, and April.
So we've you've kind of covered where you were. You then went on to become a personal trainer. I mean, there's so much to talk about, but and I know we haven't got all day, so I will try and move things along. But you did things. It sounds like it was incremental change, but it was a daily commitment to change and a daily commitment to train. And it wasn't like you had to become follow anything really dramatic or some mad diet. You just made a commitment to yourself. When did you train to become a coach and decide this was your route?
Oh, well, that wasn't until much later. So I decided to do that around about the September of 2019. And partly, and the main reason for that was that, everything that I changed around my diet, my stopping drinking, my regular exercise, for whatever reason, there was a bit of the consulting was a link to my past, and I wanted to stop consulting. And so I was thinking, well, what can I do instead? And the reason I decided to become a personal trainer was, when I was in a gym working out, I would see other people being trained by personal trainers who typically were half of their age. If that person was, if the client was a midlifer like me, the person training them was in their early 20s or something similar. And those are all great trainers, and I've got no problem with that. But what I noticed was there was a lack of rapport between the clients and the trainer. It was more of the kind of conversation that you have when you go to a hairdresser that you don't visit regularly, and they don't really know you. It's kind of, you've been anywhere nice and all of those kind of things, and you got any holidays planned. And I just thought, well, wouldn't it be much better if somebody who's in their 40s, 50s, or even their 60s had somebody that's a bit closer to their age, had somebody that's they've got more in common with, because they're probably a parent, they're probably got aging parents, they've probably got family things, they've got all of the things that they feel inside their body I probably have or do feel myself.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to have somebody that they can perhaps relate to a little more,
Yeah.
helping and training them? And so my 50th birthday present was the training course to become a personal trainer. So that's how that happened. So I didn't qualify until the following year. So that was 2020. That was so that was kind of an interesting thing to negotiate, because I didn't want to do an online training course. I wanted to go into a classroom and into a gym, so that I'm actually kind of learning in situ. And I was really fortunate, because the guy who trained me, a guy by the name of Bob Hope, his name is actually Richard Hope. Bob was his surname for obvious reasons, his nickname for obvious reasons. He was in his 70s, and the other people in the class were all in their 20s, not surprisingly. And he kind of took me under his wing, and, he was about to retire from training people to become personal trainers. And it just seems to me as though he wanted to share everything that he'd ever experienced in a career that included the Royal Navy and subsequently fitness with me. And I just felt like I really, really benefited from that. And I'm incredibly grateful for what he did and how he was. And so I qualified to become a personal trainer, interrupted by COVID. Because of the lockdown and the gym shutting down, etc.
Had you gone online at this stage or not? Had you got
no. I wasn't online at all at that point. So, and I had no intention of, the reason I was thinking, I'll just train people locally, in their homes or in local gyms, and that will be a nice way for me to to meet new people and to help new people and to not replace my consulting income, because unfortunately you don't earn anywhere near as much as a personal trainer.
No.
But to provide enough for me to be able to do that. So I started, as things started to open up. I wasn't fully qualified, but a few of the dads that I mentioned said, "Oh, we can train in a garden now. Why don't you come over and and train me?" So, I kind of did that on a almost as I'm training myself. I'm teaching myself how to train people in the process. So there was a bit of a kind of a benefit there, which was reflected in what I charged those people. And then the first thing that I did online was I just created a business profile, and on Google, etc. And I got a couple of leads, and I started to train people that I didn't know, but I was training them through Zoom. And so, they would set up their tablet or their computer in their home, and I'd be watching them on the screen and talking them through, exercises and all of those kind of things. But even then, at that point, that was just a temporary thing because of the restrictions we were all living within. And then I when everything opened up, I got in touch with a local gym. I had become qualified by this point, and I just phoned up a local gym and said, "Look, I'm a personal trainer. I've got a few clients who have been training in gardens, etc. That I'd like to train in a gym. Do you have any openings for a personal trainer?" And I did a deal with a local gym who were, because of COVID, desperate to find new trainers. The previous ones didn't come back. And I took my clients there, and they said, "Look, we've got 1,000 members, more than 1,000 members. Feel free to get in touch with these people and offer training to them." And I did, and I very quickly built a good client base from that practice. But even then,
you still hadn't gone online.
I still hadn't really gone online.
Had you got an Instagram account?
So the first Instagram account that I had was called New You Coaching, which was the brand that I kind of came up with. New You being because I felt like a new version of myself.
Well,
and you can and you can be a new person yourself too. And that built up to a couple of hundred followers, something like that. Then one day, one of my clients said, well, why don't you, kind of do more? Why don't you do, go on TikTok? And I was like, TikTok, nobody my age uses TikTok. And, my son, who would have been about 11 or 12 at that point, is always on TikTok, not people my age. And at the same time, another personal trainer, having a bit of a laugh with me, said, "Oh, I'm going to call myself A1 personal training. You should call yourself OAP personal training." And
don't we all need that name, eh?
but what, so I just laughed it up. But it did make me think, well, maybe I should make more of the midlife aspects.
Yeah.
And so that's when FitinMidlife.
So that was like 2020, 2021?
21 now. So it's just gone into 2021, about March of 2021.
Because from there to the cover of Men's Fitness is quite a jump.
Yeah. But what really what then kind of made the social media take off is that I put a couple of videos out on TikTok with this new brand.
Yeah.
And within 2 days, I had 2,000 followers on TikTok. And I'm kind of thinking, my new you coaching on Instagram is 18 months old or something by this point. And I've got 200 followers and I've got 2,000 on in 2 days on TikTok. And that just made me think I'm onto something here. So I doubled down on TikTok and I started posting regularly. And that got up to 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 really, really quickly. And then I thought, right, well, I should do the same on Instagram. And then Instagram took off. So that would be, the kind of towards the back end of 2021 when I started doing that. And then, that was the first time really that I'd thought about, doing more with what I'd got. I didn't even take before photographs, so, a lot of trainers will say, this is me before, this is me after. And I do say that, but the before photograph is actually about 8 weeks into.
Oh, how much?
So I lost 22 kilograms to be exact.
That's a lot.
But then I started to put, I kind of got a little bit too wiry, so I decided to put some more weight back on, but building muscle. The good thing about that is that, I've got the experience of the weight loss. I've got the experience of the building muscle, and a lot of people will tell you can't build muscle at 50. Yeah, you absolutely can. And therefore, it kind of puts me in a good position to help people.
And I asked, I know you did a marathon at 52, wasn't it, the first one?
Yeah.
So I can ask you about that in a sec because I'm interested in that. But I've asked you about your typical day before when you talked about, having your coffee, doing your consultancy work, blah, blah. It was kind of, and you were getting into that kind of drifty time. Yep. What's a typical day now and your fitness regime now?
Okay. The first thing to say is that there's not really a typical day because with online coaching, particularly, you're working with people across a lot of different time zones. So the first big difference is I get up a lot earlier. Typically I will wake. Yeah, absolutely. And I will typically wake up, at least 10 minutes before I set my alarm for. So I get up, I drink some water, I have some coffee, and then I have a little routine, which includes some meditation and some yoga. And then I kind of plan my day. So what is it that I'm going to be doing today? What are the key things that I want to achieve is the way that I plan it, not a to-do list, but more of a to-achieve list. And then I will go online because I have people that I work with in New Zealand, Australia, and other Eastern time zones. And they're typically kind of still awake at that point. So I'll be conversing with them online, checking out, how they're getting on and making any adjustments to their programs, etc. And then at around about 8:30, I'll go to the local gym and I'll be training my in-person clients.
Oh, you do that still, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't really take on new in-person clients now.
Yeah.
But all of the people that I train are people that are friends now. They're people I've been training for 2, 3, 4 years in some cases. And there's some brilliant stories from those people and my online clients as well.
Yeah.
One lady, for example, I started working with her when she was 58. At 61, she came fourth in her age group in her first ever High Rocks event.
Brilliant. That's such a thing, is it?
Absolutely.
High Rocks is the thing.
High Rocks is the biggest thing in fitness right now. Absolutely. But she couldn't run, she couldn't squat, she couldn't do these things.
Yeah.
And now she's like, she's in her first attempt. She's right up there at the top of the leaderboard, which is amazing. So then I will get home around about lunchtime-ish, have some lunch. Then America has woken up by this point, typically. So I'm dealing with those clients on that side. And then, at some point during the afternoon, that's when I'll create my social media posts. It's when I'll create content and exercises and instructions for my online coaching. And I will start posting things, and then have family time in the evening, and then I'll always have about an hour or so before I go to bed. So that starts off with working with my online clients, and then I have a kind of wind down routine late in the day, and then go to bed and get my sleep, rest, and recovery.
Yeah, well, I mean, wind down routines for sleep are vital, aren't they? Sleep's such an
underestimated absolutely
component of fitness and longevity.
Totally, and it's probably the most undervalued element of a healthy, fit lifestyle.
Absolutely, yeah, it is. It's one thing that people are focusing on a bit more now, thankfully. And your own training then is in the middle of the day somewhere, is it? You haven't mentioned your...
Yeah, so I fit it in, it'll be quite often that, I'm lucky in that I can work out at home. I've got equipment at home that I can work. Sometimes I'll work out in between clients in the gym that I work at. So if I've got an hour's gap in between a couple of clients, I'll use that to work out myself. I won't go and kill myself on a treadmill or anything because I don't want to be covered in sweat in front of a client. I'll do something a little more weights based training. And where I live, I've got equipment at home that I can use for strength training, and also lots of very nice trails that I can run around to get my running.
So you run, I saw somewhere you run 3 times a week, is that right? And train
3 to 4, yeah.
And then 6 strength sessions, and you keep 45 minutes. Yeah,
so I'm not a believer in long workouts. I don't think that you just get to the point of diminishing returns. And typically if you're working out, if you're in a gym for a couple of hours, unless you're doing, kind of strength powerlifting type of training where you do need a good level of rest in between each set, you frankly, you just being distracted most of the time, typically scrolling on your phone, and you could cut that time down to 45 minutes or less, and that's my belief. So when I'm working out, I'm very focused on it, and I get it all done in a short period of time, but I work out hard in that period.
Yeah, you get bang for your buck. I mean, there's so much I'd like to talk to you about. I'll tell you what, for part 2, not today, but I'd like to hear about GLP-1s, longevity, wearables, fitness stuff now. But because I want to talk to you about your reinvention, you explain it beautifully, and it's an amazing story. I just think for people listening, if there's what was the mindset shift or a sort of belief change that sustained you through all of this? What's at the core of Jason that drives you to make a change and potentially continue to make changes?
The key thing was I believed that I could do it. So before, when I got that report from the doctor, I did resign myself to my fate. That was, and I use the term a lot from the film with Jack Nicholson. This is as good as it gets. I'm not ever going to be any better than this. And that moment, the 21st of January, all of a sudden I believed that I could be better, that I could live this life of energy, fun, adventure. And it's important to say that was and remains my key motivation. It's not what I look like.
Yeah.
When I post on social media, quite often I do not have a shirt on. But I know that if I've got a shirt on, that post isn't going to get seen by half as many people as it's just the rules of the game. You have to kind of follow it.
Exactly. It is. I know exactly what you mean.
But it's really not about that for me. It's about how I feel in myself and what I can achieve, what I can accomplish, what I'm capable of doing. So so that was the key shift. It was the belief that I could.
How do you get others to believe? How do you think that we can help as trainers?
Frankly, by convincing them, because and there's lots of ways of doing that. One is to paint a vision of what. So one of the things that I will quite often say to clients is, take a look in the mirror, okay, but don't see your reflection. See the person that you want to be. Close your eyes. Think about how that person looks, how that person feels, how that person behaves, how happy that person is, all of those kind of positive things that ultimately is why, we do want to change our bodies or get fit in the first place. It rarely is about, just I want to get into a size 10 dress or a what.
I totally agree. I hate all the chocolate dress size.
Absolutely. It's a cliche, and it's not, there's always 2 or 3 much deeper levels that are driving this in reality. And if you can get people at that level to actually feel that they can be that person, then that makes a huge difference. So, kind of visualizing yourself in the future is a key part of that. Always reinforcing any positive thing that they have done. So even if that's just turning up for the session or, in the online world, I can see when people have worked out. And so, congratulating them there on getting that workout done and any accomplishments that they've had in, during that workout, which might only be, this particular exercise felt a bit easier today. Well, that's because you're getting stronger, which means that you're making progress. You are becoming the person that you visualize that you want to be. So by kind of celebrating and reinforcing that they are achieving, that they are taking steps towards that they want to be in the future, gives people the confidence that, hey, this is working. And then they start to think, I can do this. And therefore, at that point, they're more likely to be motivated rather than kind of, dragging themselves into the situation, and to actually do the work and get it done. So
and I think if you've been working in a high level career and stuff, you might have been distracted with that, but you've got the skills. I think people who maybe starting later in life should look back at other evidence of success and way they've applied themselves and just just do it. And I think what happens is people get a bit worn out, a bit tired, drift. But then people start dying, kids leave home, and you think, oh, I need to make a change. So the good thing is with the work you're doing, you've got evidence of thousands of people making that change and transforming. I think it's really important.
And it's good because that can give you a reference point that you can use almost as a case study with other people. So you go, oh yeah, one of my clients they said exactly the same thing as what you're saying now, and now this is where they are, and you can be there too. You can make that kind of progress. And it's a bit like the Roger Bannister 4-minute mile. As soon as one person runs a 4-minute mile, lots of other people follow very, very quickly, and because the belief that it can't be done has been shattered. And so that using other evidence-based examples is also a key part for it. But in the main, it's mostly around keep motivating people, keep encouraging people, keep congratulating people. Keep, when things, because things happen in life, and people have to, it might create a bit of a road bump, helping them get through that as well, because there's very few things that somebody's going to experience that either I haven't experienced personally or one of my clients hasn't experienced. So again, there's examples that I can draw upon to help people through it.
Well, I will wrap it up now because we're nearly an hour, which has gone very quickly. I really appreciate it. Just one thing I'd say is, from what I've heard, I think that your approach has been quite simple in the sense that it's a day-to-day decision that you make that you made a decision that you'd stop doing a certain amount of some things and start doing other things. And there wasn't, you don't have to have the great big vision. It's nice to have a vision, but it is just getting started, isn't it? What would you say to people who are sort of listening, thinking, 2 or 3 stone overweight and thinking, I've got really bad habits, feeling a bit low. What would you say to them?
First thing is you can do it. I didn't think I could do it. And I've proven to myself and others, otherwise. And the second thing is, which is very much linked to what you just said, and this is a phrase that I saw, because when I decided to quit alcohol, I looked online for, kind of hints, tips, and all of those kind of things. And a term always stuck with me, which is one day at a time. So don't think about, I never said to myself, I'll never drink again, or I'm quitting out alcohol for good. I just said, I'm going to take it one day at a time, and I'm not going to drink today. And if you apply that to whatever it is, so, today I'm going to work out, today I'm going to go for a run, today I'm going to do this, today I'm going to eat better, and not really worry about what you're going to do tomorrow, it makes it all of a sudden something that, if you think about the enormity of the task, seems really daunting. All of a sudden is, well, I'm just not going to do it today, or I am going to do it today. It's a lot more achievable. And
I think that's perfect. Perfect way. And just to sort of round up you on the one day at a time, there was a song which was Lena Martell, One Day at a Time, sweet Jesus. So everyone's inspiration, Google Lena Martell and have a sing along to that. But listen, Jason, thank you so much. It's really interesting. For anybody who wants to find Jason, it's Instagram is your one. I started quite TikTok. Where would FitinMidlife, is that the
everything
Google
is FitinMidlife, and and FitinMidlife.com as well online. So
fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I'll stop now and follow Jason and catch up on the next episode of the Reinventors.